Commissioner, we're over here. You think she's just trying to share the pain, or
She's telling you that you're.
trying to that I can lose weight? Thank you.
I mean, it wasn't. At least she didn't save it as a Christmas present or something.
Good point. So, Jack Villa is going to be on? Is Jack Villa going to be on? Can you go ahead and start? Commissioners, Commissioner Villa has expressed that he won't be here in person, but he will be virtually, and Commissioner Fregrosa will not be able to join us. So we're checking if Commissioner Villa is online.
Recording in progress.
Commissioner Villa, are you in the queue? Commissioner Villa, are
Hello?
you in the queue? Commissioner Villa, are you there?
I'm not Mr. Villa if you're calling to the phone number ending in 8387.
Thank you very much.
So that is not Commissioner Villa?
It is not.
So we have, I believe that we have a quorum. I say that because Commissioner Littell depends on whether or not Commissioner Littell still counts as part of the commission. If he is, then we have 3 of 6, which is not a quorum. If he is not, then we have 3 of 5, which is a quorum. But I'm not sure what it is, given that he announced resignation last time.
I want to look at what was written in the minutes. Well, the minutes indicate Commissioner Littell announced his resignation from the commission at the last meeting.
Do we have an action item on it?
I think someone asked him if he was going to be here, and he said no. He said no. So that probably was applicable. That was probably him acknowledging that as being his last meeting. He said he wouldn't be back. Yeah.
I'm willing to go with that.
Okay. So why don't we go ahead then? Well, let me backtrack. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yukio Okano. This is the regular meeting of the Oxnard Commission on Homelessness for December 5th, 2022. As chair of the commission, I would like to call the meeting to order. Could we have a roll call?
Commissioner Alejandro Fregoso. Commissioner Renee Camper-Stewart,
Present.
Commissioner Yuki Okano,
Here.
Commissioner Ruby Durias,
Here.
Commissioner Jack Villa, and that concludes roll call.
Okay. So assuming that Commissioner Littell has resigned and we have 5 active commissioners, we have a quorum of 3. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. So the first item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, actually, on my copy, public comments come after that. Huh. Well, let's deal with the minutes and then we'll have public comments. So we actually have 2 sets of minutes to approve. One for October 3rd, 2022, and the last meeting, November 7th, 2022. And I believe the November minutes were just handed out right before the meeting. Is that right?
That's correct, Chair O'Connell.
So to give you a little background here, the minutes for October were deferred at our last meeting so that they could be revised to include comments from commissioners. And as we spoke about at the last meeting, it was noted there are new guidelines under the recent HAG training where that specify commissioner comments under reports and commission business would not be included in the minutes unless the commissioner requested that they be included. The commission was not aware of this change at the time of the last meeting, so we agreed to have the comments for the October meeting from commissioners added in so that we'd have a record of what occurred at the meeting. So that's the minutes for October. So why don't we deal with the minutes by month here? So are there any comments about the October minutes, changes or corrections? Okay. Okay, so we need a motion for the October minutes to accept it. So Commissioner Durias has the motion, a second?
I second.
Okay, and Commissioner Renee is seconding. So all in favor of approving the minutes for October, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, so we'll go ahead and approve the minutes for October. So as far as the November minutes, these were just passed out, I believe, right before the meeting, and I don't know any of us have really had a chance to look at them. So I would suggest that we defer approval until the next meeting. So
Yes.
could I have a motion to that effect to defer approval of the minutes for November to the next meeting? Okay. Ruby?
Motion to.
Okay. So Commissioner Campbell-Stewart, you're moving
Make a
to.
motion to view the minutes of the next from today to defer it to next month.
Okay. And a second?
Second, I second it.
Commissioner Durias is seconding. So the motion is to defer approval of the November minutes until the next meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so we will review and approve the minutes for November at the next meeting. Okay, so item C on the agenda is public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Chair O'Connell, we do have a public comment from Ms. Mariah Lopez, wishing to speak on Mercy House.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Mariah Lopez and I'm with Mercy House. We are a homeless shelter here in Ventura County. We have 3 homeless shelters and serve a total of 205 individuals. We provide them with 3 meals a day, transportation, laundry services, and we also provide them with a housing navigator to help them get into housing. We're going to regularly be at these meetings, so I just wanted to introduce myself and give you guys a quick little update on our programs. We're currently maintaining a full staff and are at full capacity with the exception of the 10 PD beds that we set aside for the police department. One of our emergency shelters, which is the former Vagabond, they're transitioning into a rehab center starting in 2023, and they will be fully operational in 2024. And just wanted to add that we're very happy to hear that the new shelter will be named after Carmen Ramirez. We were excited to start calling it Casa de Carmen instead of Second and B.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, just want to let you guys know if you ever want a formal presentation, I'd be more than happy to do that, and I can answer any questions you guys have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Uh,
Are there any other public comments?
I want to ask her something.
Chair O'Connell, there is no additional public comments.
The PD beds are set aside for instance, if the officers find someone who needs shelter, like in an emergency type of situation? Okay.
Yeah, so just people that they like have a lot of them have a relationship with them.
Yeah. Well, that's really good that you
Yeah.
all are doing that.
Yeah.
All right. Next on the agenda are reports, and item D1 has to do with homeless encampments at Fifth and Harbor and at Perkins Road.
Chair O'Connell, if I may, I believe Commissioner Villa is in the queue now.
Oh, good.
And I could
Is he with us?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, great, thank you.
Awesome.
Is he in? Can I start?
Come tomorrow.
Hello?
Are you there, Commissioner Villa?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. All right.
Okay.
All right.
I just wanted to say something for open comments that are, I don't know if you've gone past the open comments. I just wanted to say something real quick.
All right.
Yeah, I got word that former Commissioner Peggy Rivera fell ill, and I send prayers out to Peggy in her recovery process. And I understand she's home right now and still recovering. And I send my prayers out to Peggy. And also there was a couple of neighborhood chairs that fell ill too. Joe Avalar over in Lemonwood and Nancy Ron in Blackstock North. And they also fell ill, and they're both home and recovering as well. And so my prayers go out to them as well. That's all I had.
All right, thank you for the information, and we certainly wish Peggy Rivera well. Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jessica Petrillo. I am the coordinator of the Homeless Assistance Program with the City of Oxnard. And today I'm going to be presenting about the encampment response efforts that we undertake in the City of Oxnard. And at the end of my presentation, I'm going to give an update about the 2 sizable encampments that we're currently working at, which is Fifth and Harbor and the Perkins encampment. Next slide, please. So the city conducts 2 kinds of encampment response efforts. The first kind is our weekly encampment response, and the second kind is our larger encampment response. So the weekly encampment response is just what it sounds like. It's weekly efforts where the city responds to smaller encampments every single week. So this is an effort that is led by PD. The encampments are identified mostly through the 311 app, also through staff input. It's led by PD, but it also works with other departments and homeless service providers. The main partner, of course, is Environmental Resources, who does the physical abatement and cleanup of the site. The larger encampment response is also what it sounds like. It involves the same partners from the weekly encampment response, but additional partners, including the city manager's office, the fire department, city attorney, economic development, and many more external partners. And this is to coordinate Encampment response efforts to larger encampments that have more people in them and are often in more remote locations. So this presentation includes both of these encampment response efforts, but it'll primarily focus on the latter, which is the larger encampment response. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned with the previous slide, the weekly encampment response efforts include responding to reports of homeless encampments that come through our 311 app. 311 can be used by anyone to report non-emergency service requests directly to the city. In April 2020, homeless encampment was added as a request type. The 311 app gets lots of requests, which is fantastic. There's a lot of people who are very engaged in their city and responding their concerns about homelessness through the app. In the last year, which was referred to as year 6, we received 827 requests regarding homeless encampments, and those requests were resolved in an average of 4.6 days. So practically what this looks like in terms of how we respond, the police department receives the homeless encampment response requests. They're also CC'd to environmental resources, code compliance, and the housing department. And from there, we determine which locations need to be included in the weekly encampment response. The HLOs, which are the homeless liaison officers with the police department, go to those locations and give notice that the people at this location need to vacate by a certain time. It's usually until the Thursday of that week. The HLOs talk to them about services that are available, and they can transport that person to a shelter if that person would like to go to shelter and if there is space available. As our public commenter Mariah Lopez mentioned, the Mercy House shelter has beds specifically dedicated to PD referrals. The street outreach team provides outreach services across the city Monday to Friday. So when it makes sense, they can also go together with the PD and environmental resources to do the encampment response. But we find that it's more effective to have them going out proactively to get to know people, build rapport. So they already know the people who are getting the notices for the weekly efforts. So I wanted to, next slide please. I wanted to talk about the principles around the larger encampment response. So these principles were actually written up by the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, but I like them and they're really quite in line with Oxnard's approach. The principles are time, so providing ample time to engage people living in the encampments, care, ensuring voluntary, client-centered, and trauma-informed care, providing adequate and low-barrier resources, identifying an experienced service provider partner and letting them lead the efforts, and establishing a strong coordination of those efforts. Next slide, please. So what do those principles mean in Oxnard? So in Oxnard, when we're responding to a large homeless encampment, what we do at a very high level is we plan, we provide services, and then eventually abate the site. So regarding planning, the encampment is discussed at monthly homeless task force meetings that includes representatives from across city departments, so police department, housing, city manager's office, fire code, environmental resources, and so on. I'm gonna miss some if I try to name them all. At these meetings, we plan out the whole course of action from homeless services, notifying the property owners, notifying the encampment inhabitants, identifying resources, and also planning out just the practical plans for how to remove debris from the site once we do the eventual abatement. Planning also takes place with homeless service providers and other external partners. The external partners can include the Coastal Commission, property owners, Nature Conservancy, depending on the location of the encampment. A key part of every plan is the outreach and homeless services. So what resources do we have available? How often can we go out there? What types of relocation assistance can we offer people? What current shelter capacity do we have that we can offer people when we're going out to these sites? And lastly, we abate the site. So that includes notifying property owners if it's on private property, cleaning the site, removing debris, and then securing the property after the abatement takes place. So I'm now going to walk through a summary of a large encampment response effort that took place last calendar year, and then give an overview of the 2 encampments where we are currently doing this work. Next slide, please. So last year, I believe all of the commissioners know, the city undertook an encampment response at a site that is often commonly referred to as Halico or the Slag Pile. It's a location near Ormond Beach. This was a large encampment that at one point had upwards of 50 people living in it. The site is also a Superfund site, so it had compound risk factors on top of what we already know are the well-documented risks of living in a homeless encampment. In order to respond to this encampment, a large multi-department plan was put together that included the homeless task force that I mentioned, the Nature Conservancy, homeless service providers, and the property owners. Services and the HLOs from the Oxnard PD went to the site once a month, and then we increased it to twice a month in order to get to know who's out there, conduct needs assessments, ask people what services they need and what they need in order to successfully relocate from the encampment. At that time, we also partnered with Ventura County Healthcare Agency to begin the Encampment Response Project. This project consists of street outreach and emergency shelter in the form of motel rooms. So we were able to offer people non-congregate shelter options, so a private hotel room rather than a large dormitory style shelter. And this was both helpful for COVID response services, and it's also, when we were talking to people, the type of services that people told us they wanted. We had 66 people from this location that entered the Encampment Response Project motel room portion. On November 30th, 2021, the city of Oxnard began the abatement of the site. On that day, there were only 15 people left on the site. 8 of them accepted a motel room that day, and we were able to do the abatement with PD doing 0 arrests. My key takeaways from what made this project successful to me was first the collaboration. So we had really all hands on deck. We had multiple city departments, external partners, homeless service providers, and it really felt like everyone was coming together with the same goal. So wanting to engage people, relocate them, and then abating the site. We also had resources, so we were able to fund the Ventura County Healthcare Agency's Encampment Response Project to do to do outreach and to increase non-congregate shelter options. And we also had time, so we were able to spend just under a year going out and engaging people from the site, getting to know them, engaging them into services. Next slide, please. So this is where I wanted to talk about 5th and Harbor. This is one of the more sizable encampments that we're currently doing work at. So by its name, it's located at 5th and Harbor. It's kind of off of the main street, so you can't necessarily see it when you're driving through, but it's through a fence and then past some brush area. It's, from my estimates of going out there, I'd say that there are about 30 people at this site, and I have to say every time we go out there, it does seem that there's more stuff there and there could be more people coming to this site. So currently, we are in the planning phase where we are working with the homeless task force group and with homeless service providers to plan out the timeline and eventual abatement date for this site. But we do know that homeless services and outreach are always part of the plan. And so as this plan is getting developed, homeless service provider partners are going out to the site every couple of weeks, along with the backpack medicine team and with the HLOs from the Oxnard PD. So similar to the Slag Pile site or the Halico site, homeless shelter space is always a challenge. So, you know, Mercy House and the other shelters that are in this area are in high demand and are most often full to capacity. So we are examining ways that we can increase options to offer people relocation services. And we're also looking into ways that we can increase non-congregate shelter options, since that was proven successful last time. Although we do not have a time frame for the abatement, it is likely to take place in the upcoming months. And I think I missed this bit, but I wanted to say this is also on private property, so a lot of the planning is also communicating with the owners, making sure that they know about this, the property owners, making sure that they know about the situation and that they know what their responsibilities are as property owners. Next slide, please. So the other sizable encampment is what we refer to as Perkins. This is near the Halico or Slag Pile site. It is on the other side of the canal off the end of McWayne. And I would say that there's approximately 25 people at this location. Similar to Fifth and Harbor, we are currently doing planning to see what the timeline looks like for doing an eventual abatement of the site. We have homeless service providers going out to the site twice a month. This site has been a bit challenging because we know a lot of the folks that are here. Some of the folks were the people that were living at the other location and didn't engage into services. And some of the folks engaged into the motel room program and were not successful there. So it's just another piece of work. It's the work that we do, and we still continue to go out, get to know people, and engage them into this program and see what other relocation assistance we can offer people. This site is located on city property, and so part of the plan is also figuring out how to secure the site after we do the abatement. Next slide, please. So just in summary, homelessness is one of the city's most important issues. Homeless encampments affect everybody in the city. It affects all of the residents, housed and unhoused. But we know that using these best practices that we've come to know, that homeless encampment responses that use time, care, resources, partnerships, and coordination is our best way to reduce homelessness rather than getting stuck in moving encampments across different sites. I'd also be happy to answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
Questions?
Do I have any questions? That was pretty thorough.
You can go to the next
Well-
slide, please, although it's just
Oh,
my contact info.
I had some questions if I wanted to ask some. So what I'm seeing is from the Halico site, when they were moved from that site there, have we gone back over there to see, is it back up again, or is it gone still, or what?
No, so the sites are directly next to each other. So we
So
call it the slag pile because that's where the Superfund site is, and it looks like a type of hill that has like debris, dirt, and pebbles.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay, so that site has remained clear. Across the canal, there has been another encampment. So it's not all people who were there previously, but it is some people
Some
who
of
were
the
there
same.
on the slag pile, and some new people as well.
So do we know if they went back, or those went back because they maybe lost their housing, or they just decided to go back?
So a small number of the people did not relocate with any of our programs, so they didn't go into shelter and they didn't go into the encampment response project with Ventura County Healthcare Agency. And there's also some of the people who did go into that shelter program and were not successful in that program. There's no timeline to that program currently, but people could get exited if if there's destruction to the room, to the property, or if people are not engaging in the support services that are available to them.
I have a couple of questions. You mentioned, the Fifth and Harbor and Perkins locations. Did you say those are city properties, city-owned properties?
Fifth and Harbor is not. That has a patchwork of different private property owners. The Perkins location, it's on this dead-end street. That's a city street.
So does that mean it's city-owned or not?
Yes, sorry, that means it's city-owned.
Okay. You mentioned some people are offered stays in motels. How long are they able to stay there?
We don't have a time frame of how long people can remain in the program, but the funds are limited. We were using CARES Act dollars, and so it's not a program that is going to last forever. And so although we don't have an end date to that or specific timeline that people can stay into that program, they're really actively working with people to move into other options.
So they're actively receiving social services so that they can move on to more permanent housing?
That's right.
Okay. And so people have been there for, what, a few weeks at a time, or?
There's some people that have been there for months since we did the Halico clearing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, I do have a question. So I wanted to ask, how frequently do the partners go out to these sites?
We go out once a week.
Okay.
So every Thursday morning or afternoon, we've been doing afternoons lately, we go to these sites. When we can hit both of those encampments, we go to both, and we might go once a week, but at a minimum, we go there twice a month.
Okay.
So we'll alternate those two sites. And that outreach program also goes to other encampment areas, not just these two.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question regarding the navigation center. You mentioned that the shelters are often pretty full, and if I recall, there were 10 beds set aside for people possibly brought in by police department. Is that right? Is that still the case?
That's right. That's still the case.
Okay. And the capacity normally, or pre-pandemic, was I think 100 people. Is it anywhere near that? Because I think it had gone down, right, during the pandemic.
Yeah, so the full capacity pre-COVID is 110. During COVID, we went to a second site at the POW location, so we were able to maintain that capacity. After some COVID outbreaks, even between the two sites, public health recommended that we reduce the shelter capacity to 80.
Okay.
At the end of the summer, at the end of June 30th, we went to operating out of just one site, and public health came at that time and assessed the one location and said we can maintain the 80, but they do not yet want us to go back up to the 110.
Right. So are we normally at that 80 capacity?
We're normally very close to it. And of the 80, there's 10 PD beds.
Right. So if somebody is brought in to fill some part of that 10 beds set aside for the police department, is the idea that they would, if needed, could move into that 80 portion of the population?
So the 10 PD beds are part of the 80. So there's 70 regular beds and then 10 PD beds. And so, did I answer your question, or do you?
Okay, so I mean, pre-pandemic, there were 100 regular beds plus the 10 set-aside beds.
Yes.
So you're saying now there are 70 regular beds and 10 set-aside beds?
Yes.
So if somebody is part of that 10 set-aside group, can they occupy one of those beds indefinitely, or do they need to be moved?
So we tend to discuss those on a case-by-case basis. I think, just from my experience, that people who go into the PD beds do not tend to stay as long, and if someone is staying there for a longer amount of time, then we could move them if we needed the space in the PD beds. I mean, we heard from the shelter that right now the 70 beds are full, and we just have the PD beds, so we haven't had that problem of needing to clear space in the PD beds and fill them into the community beds.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Looks like Commissioner Villa may have a question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, 3 days ago I went to the encampment on the end of Perkins and Fifth, and I think your numbers might be a little low, but a lot of times they don't make themselves known when police or any entity comes to visit them. But what I was concerned about. Thank you for the report, by the way. When you come across an emergency service, as far as one of the individuals might needing medical care, what's your procedure in addressing those individuals that need immediate medical care and emergency medical care as well?
So most of the time we're lucky enough to partner with Ventura County Healthcare Agency that brings their backpack medicine program. So that usually includes a physician that is going out with us. The physician is able to provide direct care on the site, but limited to what they can do with supplies carried in backpacks. So they're able to do wound care, they're able to give antibiotic prescriptions, they're able to do some direct hands-on medical care at the site. If we go there and someone is having a medical emergency, we do what you would do, off of an encampment. We call 911.
All right. And what if I have one more question? What if the individual refuses a medical attention, and what's the procedure if someone denies medical attention and it's been determined that the situation is an emergency and they need medical care? Or what's your process then?
So I haven't come across that. We have called 911 before when we needed someone to come and respond to an emergency health issue. Maybe that would be a question for the paramedics that come, because if they were to come and someone refused medical care, they would follow their typical procedures that they do if someone is refusing their care.
Is a I hope you know a 5150 hold is that sometimes used when addressing certain individuals in an encampment?
Yeah, so 5150s can be issued by police officers or by physicians. We haven't done that, but they sure have that in their toolkit. They would be able to do that the same way that they would be able to do that off encampments as well.
So that's one of their that's within one of their procedures, right? To use the 5150 hold.
Yeah, the gravely disabled hold. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I hope the other commissioners know what a 5150 is.
Right.
It's the gravely disabled hold that someone is allowed to bring someone in for medical care, even if they're not consenting to it at that time. If they're determined gravely disabled, unable to have the capacity to make that decision themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
5150s are part of the Lanterman Petra Short Act from many years ago, and there are three criteria: either someone being suicidal, or homicidal, or gravely disabled. So. Are there other questions?
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Yes, thank you very much for your report. Okay, going back to the agenda, item D2 under reports, is an update from the Housing Director.
Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you, Jessica. First, an update on formerly Second and B. By the way, Second and B was named out of this imagination that's right here. So I'm not sure that that's where it comes from. The construction continues to proceed. We were on a hold pending a re-review of plan check, and the contractor overcame that last week, and so they are back on site. I just was on site a couple of hours ago and have verified that they are back on site. They lost about 10 days worth of time period, but I'm being told that that will not affect the final delivery point of the project, which means that the occupancy of the site should occur in the beginning of 2024, in the winter of 2024. Starting with the occupancy of the apartment units, of the housing units, and subsequent to the tenant improvements that will occur on the ground floor, then the occupancy of the navigation center will occur thereafter. Regarding the proposed day drop-in center, as I've mentioned in the past, we continue to look for a site. It has been assigned to Elsa Brown. Elsa Brown was the person to whom the Second and B site was assigned, and she is actively looking for a location. We've gone out to look at several sites already and have not been able to identify something that was either viable in terms of the ability to finance the construction of that project, or that would be available for us to purchase. Right now, we've determined that the city does not own a property that we could make work for this purpose, and so we are having to acquire something to move forward. But we have not yet identified a viable location. The most significant of which is that since we are looking for a site in South Oxnard and therefore not in downtown, which means not in the urban core of the city, then we're not able to build a high-dense project, a tall building project. And so we need more land than the second and B site would have accommodated. So we're actively looking for that now. We have a vocational program a little bit later on the agenda, so we'll discuss that now. I would like to mention that the RFP for the Vanguard site that the county has out are back, and we are in the midst of reviewing the responses to that RFP, and we will hopefully have something to report back in the February commission meeting. Actively recruiting the new staff person that would be on Jessica's team. So we'll have an update when we know the progress there. That is all I have at this point. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
I just want to ask, has someone been identified for the position in Jessica's
Not
office?
yet.
Okay.
I haven't seen resumes. Have you seen them? Yeah, I know that there's people are applying. I haven't seen the list from HR yet.
Oh, okay.
Do we know how many people have applied?
No, I don't know. What normally happens is that the application period closes. HR does a preliminary check to weed out the ones that didn't meet the minimum qualifications, and then we get the balance of the list. So we were able to vet the ones that did meet the minimum qualifications, but I haven't received that list.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Moving on the agenda, item E, commission business. E1 is an update on the 2023 annual meeting of the commission. Is that something you're going to report on?
I'm happy to do so, Commissioner. As you know, the Commissioner Homeless normally has an annual meeting during the month of January. And so we wanted to work on scheduling that annual meeting in January. In the past 3 years since I've been here, that annual meeting is not instead of the regular January commission meeting, but in addition to. And we have normally done that in the form of a offsite meeting that has occurred in my office and other places, and has taken anywhere between a couple of hours and a full day. We don't yet have, we being Chairman O'Connell and I have not yet formed a full agenda, and we are seeking your feedback for A, the date of that meeting, and B, the content of that agenda.
So what is the purpose of this annual meeting?
The annual meeting, first of all, it's a requirement of the bylaws, and
Okay.
second, the intent of it is to plan for the subsequent 12-month of the commission. Set out goals, establish the ad hoc committees that we would establish, those kinds of things.
Okay. No, I have other relatives that are part of other commissions. They don't have an annual meeting, but they're not using the same bylaws then.
They should be.
Okay.
They're standard now.
Okay.
They
That's
should be
fine.
having annual meetings. I can tell on them.
What's a little bit confusing, I think, is that we've had both annual meetings and retreats. And the retreats, I think, have been separate from the regular meetings. I believe last year we had the annual meeting was in January, and that's when officers are elected.
We elected the officers at that time, the the chair of the commission, et cetera, happens at the annual meeting.
Right. So I think one of the concerns for trying to have an annual meeting in January is that because we have several commissioners whose terms are ending this calendar year, and there's a process where to be reappointed to the commission, the person needs to be nominated by the council person in their district, and then the names have to be approved by the council. So that obviously will take a certain amount of time. So I don't see how we could have a meeting in January, an annual meeting in January. I'm guessing the earliest would be the February meeting. Does that sound right?
Well, I mean, first of all, it doesn't need to happen at the regularly scheduled meeting. It can be a specially scheduled meeting. But you're right, we will have 2 vacancies at least. And it may be worth our while to wait until those 2 vacancies are filled by the council. I don't know right now when that might occur, but I can definitely communicate with the city council and communicate back with the commission when those vacancies might be filled, and therefore work on scheduling the annual meeting post those appointments.
Right.
Do we know what are the districts that our vacancies are in? District, where do the people need to live in district what and what? Christian, do you know that?
I don't remember the district, but it would be Councilwoman Basua.
Okay.
And Council Member McDonald. Right?
If I can make a correction to that, I believe Commissioner Littell was appointed at large, so his appointment would need to come from Mayor Zaragoza.
Okay.
Okay, so Basua is correct though, right?
Basua is correct.
And at large.
So it would appear that we won't know until some point in January where we are with filling the vacancies.
It may be sooner, but I don't know right now. I definitely can communicate with Councilwoman Basua and the mayor and communicate back and see when we expect to have appointments, and then therefore work on the annual meeting.
Okay. Are there any other issues regarding the annual meeting that we need to be aware of?
No, but if we wanted to have a separate meeting, i.e. a retreat, do we want to work on that now or wait for the commission to be full as well before we have that retreat? If we want to have one at all, I'm not sure that there needs to be one at your discretion.
I feel that we need to wait until we have more people, or if we can, at least until, what do we say, February?
At the earliest.
At the earliest, February.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Because there may be someone with the at-large that may be interested that I've been talking to.
Well, we are mandated to have an annual meeting, but not necessarily mandated to have a retreat. And I guess the functions of a retreat could possibly be folded into an annual meeting, but yeah, I agree. I think we should probably find out who's going to be on the commission and then move on from there.
I will do that.
That sounds good.
All right, and then item E2 under commission business is discussion of a possible homeless vocational program.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have this item has come up on the agenda in the past, and we have been working on a potential program for quite some time. There has been success along the way, and at this point, we do have an allocation from the City Council to seed the creation of a vocational program. Vocational program is something, a reference that I'm referring to. a form of a job creation or career builder for a person that is otherwise homeless or previously homeless, maybe in the shelter, maybe in a stable housing with a voucher or some version thereof. So we do have an allocation that we can seat. That's great. We were able to find a sample program that we liked, and I asked Christian to draft an RFP for the procurement of an operator of that vocational program. He did so very completely. I'm very happy with that work. While that was working, while he was working on that, there identified a new program that the state enacted, a new piece of legislation that the state enacted, and they have now created a state tax credit program for employers that hire formerly homeless persons. And so we are working to incorporate that tax credit into that program so that we can redraft and issue that RFP. It does provide a good amount of incentive to that employer, and up to $10,000 in tax credits. We can also offer a preliminary assistance from the Workforce Development Board, which we've always known. They assist in providing a portion of the initial salary of the person that is being trained in a vocational program. So that RFP a month ago was almost in final form, but we discovered the legislation and the new laws, so we decided to amend it to include that new legislation. It calls for a certificate that is issued by the state, and that certificate has to come from a public agency that certifies the inclusion of a formerly homeless person, which we will do as part of the new RFP. So we hope that RFP will be ready to be issued within January, and we will put it out and make sure that everybody on the commission has a copy of that procurement. And if you know somebody that is able, or if you are able to respond yourselves, we'd be happy to invite that participation. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time. We do think that we will have capacity to seed a program with a fairly small number of initial participants, 5 to 10, and then hopefully grow from there. Right now we're thinking that the program participants are procured either from the shelter that Mercy operates or from one of the homeless Section 8 voucher programs that we have operating right now.
Do we think that will the person that, or whoever was formerly homeless, will they have to have certain skills, or you don't think?
No,
What do you think?
we don't think that they will have to have certain skills. The program is intended to provide career vocational training, so hopefully not a certain skill. We do think that there will be a required level of stability that a person will need to have in order to be able to participate in the program. But in terms of being, have an active, skilled, or trained labor, no, we don't think that will be a necessary objective.
Are there any similar programs in Southern California that are operating?
Quite a bit, actually. So the idea I kind of stole from a nonprofit in LA called Chrysalis. And Chrysalis is a fairly large nonprofit that started with the LEDWP. And so I've been kind of a fan of theirs for quite some time. So the idea came from there. Since then, at first I tried to recruit them to Oxnard. They're way too big, and I couldn't afford them. But then we started to look for other programs throughout the country. There's plenty. And we found one that we liked. And so I asked Christian to modify it for our purpose, and that's where we're headed.
All right.
There's a really nice one run in San Diego from Father Joe's Villages, and also fairly large. I went to go meet with them 6 months ago or something like that. It's impressive, but it's kind of a dream for maybe a few years from now.
Well, so it's good to know there are successful programs like it already
Oh,
operational.
there's
Yeah.
plenty. There's many programs out there for that are successful. Not, I mean, for that matter, not just homeless, but youth and college. So.
All right, thank you. Okay, back to the agenda. Item F is ad hoc committee reports, and F1 is Housing First. Update.
So the Housing First subcommittee has met, and we have started to work on launching the Housing First general community discussion. I have generated the initial draft of the calendar for the next 12 months. I'm working to get that vetted by the staff in the city manager's office, which I have not yet completed. But I do think that that timeline that we have is seeking to have an initial document, like a first draft of a plan, by this summer. And that is essentially in December, 7 to 8 months worth of community discussion, including 2 times back to the commission and to the city council committee, and hopefully have a draft plan that will then lead to subsequent community discussion in the middle of the summer.
Any questions? No. All right, thank you. So, a question does occur to me. If I recall, is part of the plan to have a series of community meetings about this?
Yes. So the intent was that we've already had 2 meetings with INCO. We were going to go back to INCO, then go to the Community Services Committee, and then try to have at least 1 community meeting in each district of the city, each council ward of the city, then present a plan in the summer. And then at that point, if we needed to have return meetings to those same groups so that we can review the draft plan, we would consider that at that time.
All right. Okay, thank you. So item F2, and maybe we can combine it with F3, it has to do with the foul weather shelter and the safe parking updates. And the last we talked about this, these proposals are going to be presented to the City Council Subcommittee.
Yes, sir. So there's a little typo on the agenda, but item F2 is not an item, but item F3 and F4 are foul weather and safe parking. Both of those staff reports have been written, submitted into the agenda system that we have. It's called Civic Clerk, leading to a committee action in December. I received that system routes the staff report to finance department and the city manager and the city attorney's office, et cetera. So I received the initial set of comments returned back from the city attorney's office and finance department, which I am working on revision right now. All that should happen in a way that it can be considered by the committee, the Community Services Committee, within the month of December.
So I looked at the city calendar, and I think we're talking about the Community Services, Public Safety, and Housing Development Committee.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's correct.
And they next meet on December 13th.
That's correct.
So are we talking about the meeting after that then?
No, we're talking about December 13th. It is preliminary on the meeting on December 13th, and assuming I can make my deadline to resubmit the comments, which is tomorrow, then they will be on that agenda.
And their agenda is published tomorrow, is that right? A week ahead of time?
It gets sent to be published tomorrow, and then it gets, I think it gets published on Thursday.
So we would know for sure by
On
Thursday.
Right, correct.
And that committee meets, what, twice a month?
The committees meet on opposite Tuesdays, opposite the city council. So the city council meets one Tuesday, and then the committees, and then
So, I guess what I'm trying to get at is if it was not going to be the 13th, it would be the meeting
27th.
after that, 27th. Okay. All right, thank you. Did you have a comment, Ruby?
No, it's just, no.
Okay. And then item F4 is the longest night event. And I guess I will make a brief report on that. So we are on track to have the longest night event in Oxnard on Sunday, December 18th. And I brought some copies of the flyer. I don't know if you at Mercy House have seen this or not, but I have copies if you like. So there's been a lot of planning going on for the longest night events. There's one in Ventura that occurs on Saturday, December 17th, and as I mentioned, in Oxnard on Sunday, December 18th. And both cities have plaza parks, but they're different parks. So both events will start at 3:30. For Oxnard, the Reverend Melissa Campbell Langell of All Saints has graciously offered to be the lead minister. And in Ventura, Reverend Dana Worsnop of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Ventura is the lead minister. I do have a copy of the program for Oxnard, and let me just give you a brief summary of what's going to be happening. There will be some gathering music provided by Corey Branchflower of Shelter Care Resources. Reverend Melissa Campbell Langell will act as kind of the host, moderator for the event. We'll have a reading and reflection by Reverend Benjamin Thomas Jr. of Bethel AME. Other music provided during the service by Corey Branchflower. And we will have reflections by 6 different people, including a representative from the Oxnard Police Department, Sergeant Steve Trickle, a person who's had the experience of being homeless, who's now a minister, Minister Beatrice Anna Rodriguez, and Michael Skinner of Mercy House will also be speaking. Reverend Melissa will be providing a summary of who the homeless folks who have passed during the past year, who they are in terms of numbers, gender breakdown, some background information about them without identifying them. And we will have the names of all the people who have died read. And this year, we're only reading the first name and the initial of the last name. And we have several people who will be reading the names, including Mariah Lopez from Mercy House, Commissioner Villa, Kim Helton, who I believe heads a nonprofit, and Jessica will be one of the readers. Ruby will light candles, and I will ring a bell for each name as they're read. We'll have music provided by Dr. Ted Lucas. I'm trying to remember his affiliation. He's with All Saints, yeah. And additional reflections by Commissioner Camper Stewart and 2 people from, I believe they're at Mercy House, who are homeless, Peter Robinson and Betty Knuckles. I believe is the name. And there'll be an opportunity for people in the audience and the community to share memories if they knew any of the people who had passed. We'll have the blowing of the shofar by Rabbi Michael Lotker and a benediction from Reverend Frida Wiggins, who is from his Dream Fulfilled Center. So we'll have a lot of activity going on during that service. Any comments or questions, or Ruby, you're on the committee, do you want to add anything? No? Okay. Okay, so that's my report on that. And in the agenda, we have item G, a report of the commission secretaries. I don't know, Christian, if you have anything you wanted to report?
Chair O'Connell, I have no new report at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, and we're down to item H, commissioner comments. Anything, well, let's ask each of the commissioners. Commissioner Cameron, Stewart, do you have any comments or things you want to add?
No, I don't want to have, I don't have any comments.
Okay.
Any closing comments? No.
How about Commissioner Durios?
But I just want to say that I'm looking forward to December the 18th and getting that all done and everything. Everyone has worked really hard since we've been doing this almost 6 months, huh? But we're finally almost at that point. Last week I actually we go out and do a caroling at one of the senior care centers, Shoreline, on the south side of Oxnard. So I did that this past weekend. We actually went and did carols, and with the residents that were there. We couldn't go to the rooms, of course, but we were in the foyer part where they had the tree, and we brought gifts to give them at the end as we sang Wish You a Merry Christmas. It was such an uplifting occasion again, as we do all the time. But they were very glad to have that happen for them. Thank you.
That's nice.
Commissioner Villa, do you have any final comments you'd like to make?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. So I just wanted to say a couple things. I think we need to have a kind of a mechanism for all the commissioners to be able to indicate whether they want their comments to be part of the record for the minutes. And I don't know, we can talk about it now or maybe another time. I mean, I would like my comments to be for the record, just because if we don't have that, then we don't really have much of a record for what occurred during the meeting.
Right.
So I'd like to ask maybe both commissioners here and also Commissioner Villa how they feel about that, just so that we're clear.
I have no problem with my comments being included in the record. I agree with you.
I agree. I concur.
I agree. I agree too, Yukio, on having our comments on the record.
Okay. So my thought is that if it's permitted, and you can tell me, Christian, what you think, that unless a commissioner says they do not want their comments for the record, that we assume that whatever we talk about can be summarized in the minutes.
Chair O'Connell, yes, I do believe that is acceptable.
Chairman,
Yeah.
I did speak to that end. I did speak to the city attorney's office, and they have indicated to me that that is acceptable. However, they would like an affirmative statement, maybe from you at the beginning of the meeting, that the comments will be for the record unless someone objects.
Are we talking about at each meeting, or can we make that?
At each meeting, just at the beginning of the meeting, that today's comments will be for the record unless anyone objects.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll draft a brief statement. The only other thing I would add is I hope all of us who are available on December 18th will be able to come to the longest night event. And if the foul weather shelter and safe parking proposals do come up on December 13th, that those of us who are available, support those proposals at the meeting.
One more thing.
Do you have any final comments? Yeah.
That's something I forgot. I apologize. Carl Lawson will be retiring at the end of this month.
Oh, my goodness.
And so he will be recognized at the city council meeting on December 20th. So if you're able to attend, you're invited to attend in his recognition.
Okay. How many years has Carl been with the department? Do you know?
35, I think, 36.
Wow. Wow.
Long time.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Okay, so if there's no other business, we will adjourn the meeting. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good meeting.